God's story, entering the promised land. So part of God's story is about when his family entered the promised land, and it goes like this. Back when God started his family with Abraham and Sarah, he promised they would live in a brand new, wonderful home called Canaan. Then God's family grew and grew, and eventually got stuck as slaves in Egypt. So God sent Moses to lead them out of Egypt and through the wilderness. And now it was time to go home to the promised land. God had even chosen a new leader, Joshua. Now God knew that getting to the promised land looked impossible. For one thing, there was a river in the way, and it was getting bigger and bigger. To make matters worse, people were already living in Canaan, and they didn't want to move. But remember, kids, with God, nothing is impossible. Fortunately, Joshua knew that. So he told all the Israelites, "You will soon know that the living God is among you." God had told Joshua he was about to do something incredible. So Joshua obeyed everything God told him to do. First, God said to send the priests to the Jordan River ahead of everyone else. The priest's job was to help God's family talk to God. Now that Jesus has rescued us, we can all talk to God. But back then, priests had to help. Anyway, the priests were going to carry something called the Ark of the Covenant. It was where God's family kept special things God had given them, like the 10 Commandments, a jar of manna, and the staff Moses' brother carried. It was a reminder that God was with them. They had been chosen by God, and he would take care of them. Well, Joshua told the priest to carry it to the water's edge, then step right into the Jordan River, even though it was flooded. God said that once they stepped into the Jordan River, he would stack the water up on both sides. And he reminded them that he could do that, because after all, he is in control of the whole earth. It probably felt really scary to step into a flooded river, but they trusted God, so they obeyed. And guess what? Once their feet were wet, the water stacked up on both sides, just like God promised. A dry path formed, and the whole nation of Israel crossed the Jordan River. Best of all, everyone saw how powerful God was. In fact, other nations would hear about what happened and see how powerful God was too. Instead of attacking the Israelites for crossing into their land, they would hide in their cities. But for now, the people were thankful to be in the promised land and believed that God could help them not only cross the river, but eventually move into their home. God didn't want his family to forget that either. So he told Joshua to send 12 men to get one stone each and pile them up. Every time they returned to the Jordan River, they would see the pile. Many years later, God's family would ask, "What do those stones mean?" And someone would tell them about how God is powerful and how he always takes care of his family. And that's the story of when God's family entered the promised land. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. God promised a home. He chose Joshua to lead. A river was in the way. People already lived there. Joshua trusted God. The priest stepped into the river. The river stopped. God's family went home. They thanked God. God is powerful. He can take care of his family. And that's a part of God's story.